Can you guys hear me now? Can y'all hear me? Sorry about that. All right, perfect. So sorry. So obviously Alabama gets the win by a score of 90-86 in this game. If anybody saw my game or my prediction against with the Armchair Illini earlier this week, I predicted Illinois was going to win this game. And my prediction, I wrote that Illinois was going to win this game. And it was because I didn't know that Keaton Bristow was going to play. And I said that in the prediction, right? I straight up said, hey, my prediction's 91-87. I think Illinois wins the game. But if I hear that Keaton Bristow is going to play in this game, I think he gives us enough in rebounding that I would flip the score. And I didn't know he was going to be this big, but everything that I've heard about Keaton Bristow this summer, that was the guy that you just saw today, right? I think that he was even better than advertised. This is the guy that Jordan Harper talked about on the show earlier this summer when he was able to see practices with his basketball team. I think overall, Keaton Bristow has been absolutely phenomenal in this game. We're going to talk all about everybody. I think that Amari Allen played huge in this game, another massive rebound game. Alabama did not win this game in a way that, you normally would see. Obviously, LeBaron Philon does come up clutch at the end. Hit a big three. Obviously, would have loved to see him hit both free throws, but hit one of them that was a big deal. And then, but had a good game. But the thing was, this was a game that, unlike Alabama last year against Illinois, when you scored 100 points, you didn't really do it solely based off the 3-point number. You obviously shot well from three in the first half, but the 3-point number was not the difference. Honestly, it was the defense. I think the defense in this game was absolutely clutch. I know we got a lot of comments in here, so I want to go through some of the ones that I see down here. So we got Brock saying Bristow is him. Absolutely agree. Miss Cindy with the roll tide, Brock with the roll tide. Thomas saying nice win. Bristow makes a difference. Can't wait to see what Bethea brings to the table. Absolutely. He's somebody that I, definitely am very curious to see if we hear that he's going to play in the MTE or if it's going to be that Clemson game like I've originally said. I think those are the two most common chances for when he's going to play is either we break open the box for the MTE or that Clemson game. I think he's getting very, very close. Obviously, he's practicing without a brace or anything. So I think we're getting very close for him, or he's doing basketball activities, I guess I should say. So I think he's getting close, but he's somebody that I will be very curious to see when he does come back. Great road win, 100%. Obviously, it was in Chicago, but and will count officially as a neutral site. But obviously, huge Illinois crowd. I think Alabama may have had 2% of the crowd or something there. Not a very big one in that. Let's see. Millette being the glue, he's somebody that honestly there were times today where I feel like he was missing shots that I didn't want to see him miss, and it's a shot that I really, I love Millette's shot. I think he has one of the prettiest shots on the team, but there were just things where it felt like he was a little off at times, but then you get the huge steal and run out, which I think was a game changer for when it happened. Then obviously he hits the 2 free throws to ice the game and wanted the ball there. I think that there were moments that Millette played in this game that absolutely were huge. Do I think that you could get a little bit more out of him? Maybe hit a couple of more threes when he got them open, sure. But I still think, obviously what you got out of him was very, very big, super huge. In terms of we needed Bristow to play, I'm of the mindset after what I saw tonight that if we had gotten this version of Bristow, even this hobbled version of Bristow, because he clearly was hobbling at times, the ankle was not 100% today. But even this version of Bristow, if we get this guy against Purdue, I think Alabama wins that Purdue game. I think he gives us enough physicality and what he was able to do. And I tweeted it out that Keaton Bristow was able to play out there with Amari Allen and Taylor Bowen. So play Amari at the 3, Taylor at the 4, and Keaton at the 5. And it gives you enough physicality down low and enough rebounding that you can actually compete with some guys that are bigger than you. And I think you could have been able to run that lineup against an Oscar Clough and been able to have some success. I don't think you win the rebounding battle, but if you don't lose it by 24, I think you still could have won that game. Because again, Alabama had a chance to tie the game with a minute and a half to go, and a handful of rebounds could have definitely been the difference in that game. So I personally am of the mindset I think Keaton wins that game if we have him. But that's personally kind of what I think about this one. Really quick, couple of things. I know we kind of got started, and I was crazy and forgot to set up. I, ha- I have a software that helps with my mic so it doesn't get too loud and blow out the eardrums. And for some reason, the software wasn't turned on. So really sorry about that. But we got a couple of things I just want to cover here up the top for anybody who's new. I'm sure we got some new people in here. If y'all are new, check out my website. It has all of my pregame predictions and stuff. Obviously, also if you follow me on Twitter, you'll remember or see that I do the pregame write-ups. So I put out all those kind of the deep dive threads. They're posted on the website. They're posted on my Twitter accounts. If you're ever interested, those are kind of the key things. Miss Cindy says that Illinois gave away points by missing free throws. Honestly, Andrei Stojakovic, that was, even though he was the reason why Illinois was in that game, his missed free throws are the reason they lost that game, in my opinion. He missed a ton of free throws down the stretch. I think he ends up going like 1 of 5 from the line. And as big as he was in keeping them in that game, the free throws he missed were huge. I mean, those free throws were a massive, massive deals. And, it ended up being the difference in this game because obviously Alabama, wins it by a 4-point margin. And I think that very easily you can point to the fact that um that 4-point margin is the case if Stojakovic is able to get the rebound. So let me pull up the box score because I want to kind of go through some of those. I know a lot of people like talking about those as they come out. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. All right. Start Bull Bowen at the 4, Bristow at the 5. I don't think you'll start him there because I think that Aiden does give you stuff. Obviously, he struggled today in foul trouble, but I do think that he does give you things at the 5 and a physicality that you need. But I do think that Bristow plays a good bit of the 5 for us this season. I think he gives you a real physicality that Williamson just doesn't. And he gives you an athleticism that Williamson just doesn't. Keaton Bristow has the highest vertical on the team, and it's not really close. I think he has like a 41-inch vertical. Noah Williamson is definitely not that athletic. So he gives you something additional at that small ball 5 that you're not getting out of your other 5s. So let's throw the box score here up on the screen. So a couple of things that kind of jump out at me. Alabama shoots our actual season average from 3, got 36% from 3. Again, not a great 3-point shooting game, but not a terrible 3-point shooting game. Obviously the fouls, Alabama ends up only having Amari Allen foul out of that game. Obviously, for me, for how many people were in foul trouble for huge stretches of this game, I was completely okay with that. One thing that I do think helped Alabama in rebounding in this game is I thought that the officials were doing a better job calling box out fouls and not allowing guys to get thrown around. In that Purdue game, it felt like Oscar Clough and TKR were able to move guys around a little more than I would generally want to see. And I think that the officials did a better job in this game, especially early, getting those calls so that people were not, able to just move whoever they wanted to get the rebound. And I think that that helped Alabama in this game, right? Alabama obviously got called for some of those fouls, but I think that in general, I think that it helped our rebounding in this game because obviously stuff was getting called. Aiden Holloway did not have his best shooting night. He goes 2 of 8 from 3. I think honestly, and I tweeted this out, I thought that Aiden Holloway's problem may have been the double 3-point shooting line. He is so used to shooting far behind the line, and then he was shooting far behind the NBA 3-point line. And I just think he was out of his range, right? I know he has the range to hit that, but I think that, toward the end, it really felt like he didn't have the strength to get it there. And so I think that he just was shooting from too far, quite frankly. I think that the double 3-point line kind of messed up Aiden at times in this game. LeBaron Fallon, as we said, huge. I thought that the 3-point shot he made at the end of the game obviously was absolutely massive. You look at Amari Allen getting 11 rebounds. He was my player to watch, and he was the guy who I thought was going to have a huge impact in this game. I think that what Amari does in a game like this that is going to be fast paced, him getting the rebound allows to not have to have an outlet pass, and you can just get the team moving in transition. And Amari getting that is just huge, right? I think he's going to have a lot of double doubles this season. Obviously, he's 1 point shy of it today, but I think that he's going to have a ton of double doubles this season. For me, also the other impact guys, the fact that Keaton Bristow gets 8 rebounds in 20 minutes on a bum ankle. it's a want to situation. Keaton Bristow's motor is just better than anyone, right? Like to me, like his motor was just nonstop. The ball found him every single time. It's everything that I was here again. The reason why, if I went on any podcast or if I was talking to people and I was asked, "Hey, who is your player to watch?" It was Keaton Bristow, right? He was the guy who was underrated. Tarleton State, oh, Alabama gets this guy. He was probably the lowest rated recruit or transfer that Alabama got, especially behind Taylor Bowen and Jalil Bethea. I would argue because Noah Williamson's size and the fact that he was the player of the year in the Patriot League, he was probably more highly regarded, at least coming out, than Keaton Bristow. But Keaton Bristow was the guy that you just kept hearing about all offseason. And usually when you hear something like that, it's because of what they're doing in practice, right? They're turning heads. And so that's the reason why I kept kind of singing his praises. And I was obviously super impressed with what I saw at him today. Honestly, the other thing that I think really, really impressed me was how good Alabama did on Mirkovich today. Um, Mirkovich ends with 10 and 10, but it was a super quiet 10 and 10. Obviously, he had the 10 points in the first half. His rebounding was not great. It was fine. And obviously, he gets 10, so you can't say it was bad, but it just was not as impactful toward the game as I thought that it could be. Obviously, when you see that he grabbed 21 rebounds last game, you're really scared. And, getting 10 and 10 obviously was great, but I didn't think that he impacted the game quite at the level that he possibly could have. Kylan Boswell, Alabama, obviously let him get to the line a little bit, which hurt us, but he did not hurt us quite as much as I thought he could have. Obviously, 0 4 from three will definitely do that. Stojakovic, as we talked about, he missed 3 free throws, which ended up being a huge difference maker in this game. What he did from inside the arc was phenomenal, but his 5 turnovers and 3 missed free throws ended up being the difference in this game, right? Some other guys that I kind of wanted to mention before we just talk about this game in general, and I kind of go through some different questions that you guys have. Um, I wanted to point out Davion Hannah. I think that he didn't play a whole lot. He actually ended up only playing 5 minutes in this game, and it's because he got sped up. But I was really impressed when I saw his three and the effort that he was giving. I think that this was a game where he just was speeding himself up too much. Obviously, the announcers talked about it, but I think that long term, what you're going to have in Davion Hannah is going to be really good. Obviously, he has a motor that's really good. It's something that you've heard a lot about, similar to Amari Allen. You saw that in some of the scrimmages, but I do think that he can give you some more. Just wanted to point that out because I did like what I saw in his 5 minutes, other than obviously when he got really bad sped up. Aiden Sherrill, obviously the fouls were not great, but the three-point shot was huge. I thought that when he was able to actually get to his spot, I thought that getting the foul on Zvonimir was huge. I thought that in general, what he was doing was okay. He just was getting too handsy, right? Getting too handsy with the moving screen, which he's done time and time and time again this year, unfortunately. Getting too handsy, which cost him 2 of his fouls where he just reached in when he shouldn't have. Obviously, that's something you need to clean up, but I didn't think that he played a terrible game, right? He hit a three, he hit his only shot from down low, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Definitely could have been worse, right? Like, not his best game, not his worst. Latrell Wrightsell, honestly, he's the only one that really, honestly, it shocked me because of how poorly. I wouldn't say poorly, but he just didn't have the impact on this game that I thought he could have. Defensively, I thought that his impact was fine, but Latrell Wrightsell goes 2 of 5, 1 of 4 from three. Not a great shooting performance for Latrelli. Has just 1 rebound, has a couple of assists, but has 2 turnovers, which is second on the team in turnovers. And I thought that for a team and for a game that was played so fast paced, and for a guy that played 26 minutes, I did not love that out of Trelly. Again, did he have some fairly impactful stuff? Did he hit a huge three at a very clutch moment? Absolutely. But only having 5 points out of your fifth year senior, I didn't love that. I think that pace of that game was one that should have suited him a little better, and it just didn't, unfortunately. Um, would have loved to seen a little bit more, but obviously don't want to get too down on that. Taylor Bowen again continues to be a huge difference maker on this team. His rebounding was not as big as it was in the St. John's game, but he still gives you a great shooter from three. Ends up going 2 of 6, so not his best percentage-wise shooting night, but hit two big ones. Had a couple of blocks. Was really happy with what I saw out of him. So, Sleepy Panda says Alabama needs to work on lobs and miss points in the fast break. Specifically in the fast break, I thought that one of the threes that LeBaron Philon missed, he pulled a fast break out. It was a 2-on-1. He had Keaton Bristow that he could have thrown the lob to. I thought that was the one situation where we didn't throw the lob, but I thought we should have. Obviously, Amari Allen misses the lob. Taylor, I think, missed a lob. You had a couple of lobs missed for sure, but I do think that there were situations where Alabama probably should have thrown more than they did, and there were other moments where they just shouldn't have thrown it in the first place. And unfortunately, that's kind of a situation that you kind of have to get used to and learn your team a little more to know when you should throw it and when you shouldn't. I do think that this game is going to teach you a lot because when you play a team that has that many Europeans on it, there's a lot of fundamentals that they do. There's a lot of pick and roll coverages that they do. There's that team has played even though they've not been currently on the same team, they know of each other and have played with each other overseas a good bit. So that is a very tough team. I expect them to be able to compete for the second weekend. They've only made the second weekend once, which was a couple of years ago, but I do think that they have the ability to make it again this season. Something that ended up popping up that I saw when I was researching this game is that they're one of the lower teams in the country at getting assists. And I think that that's something that they play a lot of one-on-one ball. And Alabama was able to take advantage of that from a defensive perspective. I think that Alabama's rotations on defense at times in this game were really good. Obviously, we get the shot clock violation. But when you have guys like Davion Hannah, or not Hannah, sorry, Amari Allen, Keaton Bristow, Taylor Bobo, and even Aiden Holloway put in a huge defensive effort, I thought, at times in this game. LeBaron got a little handsy, so got a couple of fouls, but at times he was good in this game from a defensive perspective. Obviously, Trelley's defense was the reason why he played the amount of time that he did. But all of those defensive amounts, I thought that Alabama was able to take advantage of the fact that Illinois just does not assist on a ton of passes or a ton of made baskets. I think that honestly that was part of the difference in this game. Part of that is just how Illinois plays basketball. So, they're not going to change how they play basketball just to go up against Alabama. But I do think that that was part of how we were able to have some success in this game is the fact that they just don't swing the rock as much as like a Purdue does, right? Purdue averages an assist on like 75% of their possessions versus Illinois is like 40 something percent of their possessions. So it's just a completely different style of basketball and how they play. And I think that the Illinois style is something that suits playing against a little better, especially with how our defense is working. So I think that's part of the success that Alabama was able to have in the first half. I think that it was just good individual effort and getting into the flow of the game. Obviously, just two teams that are making shots and taking punches from each other. One team shoots 8 of 20, the other one 8 of 21. So there's not a whole lot that you can really glean from that, in my opinion. That's just two good teams going at it. I thought in the second half, Alabama made really key defensive adjustments and made some really, really big adjustments from a rebounding perspective. I think additionally, the fact that you found out that Keaton was able to go and you just put him out there kind of immediately in the second half, I thought obviously helped your rebounding pretty substantially because it really felt like I want to say the ball found him, but really he found the ball because a lot of that was motor and effort. That was not just the ball bouncing into his lap. That was him going after it and being rewarded with the basketball. And I think that Keaton has that. And it's something that was missing in that Purdue game. And it's something that is greatly, greatly needed. Honestly, he reminds me of like Noah Clowney from a rebounding perspective, that just where he rebounding is something that he knows and that's what he's going after, right? Just just motor, 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 motor. Was very, very excited with what I saw out of him. And, I know he has a 3-point shot. He didn't take one in this game, but I think that, when you also have a shooter in him and he has a really, really high release with how long his arms are. So I think that he's somebody that long term, as he continues to get back from the ankle injury, I think that he's going to be a huge key player on this team. So I know we've got a lot of people in here. We got like 27 people on YouTube, like 60 something on Twitter. But thank you. First off, thank you everybody for joining. We're probably not going to go terribly, terribly long today. May only go like 45 minutes. But obviously, we still got plenty of time in here. So, want to open it up to some questions. Additionally, if you guys are new around here and are not currently subscribed, if y'all could do me a favor and subscribe, I would appreciate it. We're on the road to 1,000 subs. That's kind of my goal. That if we can try to hit it before the end of basketball season. So if y'all are new here and y'all could subscribe, I would really appreciate it. Throw a like on the stream again. Would really, really appreciate it. What do you guys got going on down in the comments? Let's see what kind of questions y'all have. And Carson, I did see your comment about me calling him being a dog before the year. That's all credit to, what I heard from Jordan Harper, what I'd seen, what I'd heard from different people that I'd talked to is that name just kept Keaton's name just kept coming up over and over and over again. And when you see the same player's name coming up over and over and over again, it reminds me of like LeBaron from last season, right? LeBaron Fallon came in as a guy that you expect. LeBaron Fallon comes into a guy that honestly Nate Oates brought in expecting him to redshirt. I don't know how much y'all know about when LeBaron actually got to Alabama. But he was at Kansas and he was previously committed to Auburn, then went to Kansas, and then he came to Alabama. And from what I've been told, he was always wanting to come to Alabama. And Nate Oates was worried he didn't play defense. And then Nate Oates was like, okay, we'll let you come, but you may end up redshirting. And then like a month into the season, they were like, yeah, we're not redshirting this kid. Like he might start. And it was because of the kind of trouble he was giving Mark Sears in practice and just what he was doing on the court. He was clearly earning his minutes, improving what he could do on the basketball court. And Nate Oates just was not aware of it because he had not shown that defense because he didn't have to in AAU or in basket or in high school at Link or sorry, at in Mobile. It was a different style of basketball. And then when LeBaron showed it, obviously he has the success that he has. That's kind of the same thing that I kept hearing about Bristow is every time you would talk to somebody, Keaton Bristow's name just kept coming up of like, oh, this guy's defense is really good. He seems fluid out on the basketball court. He's, just a phenomenal player. It's like, okay, great. Yeah. If Bristow is that guy, then of course I want to have him on our team. So, and I think that he's going to play massive minutes. Obviously, you have a freshman of the year, and I think that his athleticism is something that travels, and then his defense and rebounding is something that the defense is what I knew about. The rebounding is what shocked me the most, but very, very excited to see that. So we got a question, big folks. Do you see that Bethea starts? Honestly, kind of if he plays to the potential that he's capable of, I could see him starting at the 3. But, immediately thereafter, I don't know. And honestly, this is a situation where I would kind of look at it similar to honestly, to a Bristow, right? I fully expect that Bristow finishes out a lot of games on the floor. I don't know that he starts a lot of games on the floor because I think that your 4 and 5 are pretty set and Taylor and Aiden Sherrill. And so I kind of look at it as Bethea is going to play starter minutes. I don't know if he actually starts on the floor, but I don't know that actually matters. I look at that very similar to Aiden Holloway last season being 6 man of the year. He didn't start hardly any games. I don't think he started a single game actually last season, yet he played 30 minutes a game down the stretch. I think that's what you're going to see out of Bethea if he is the guy that we think he's going to be. I think that Bethea plays, 20 plus minutes a game, but he does it potentially off the bench. Are there going to be games where I could see him starting? Sure. But I think personally that Houston Millette probably has the 3 locked down. If he starts, I would say it's at the 3. Would be curious to see if he does end up starting, like I said, but I personally kind of think that Houston Millette probably starts unless something happens. I think that what he does from an intangibles perspective is pretty big. And then also just having, or I think, did Trelly start today from 3 or at the 3? Um, it, maybe. Yeah, it's just it's so tough to know if Nate's gonna start a guy like Bethea. Really, the question is he starts Bethea if Bethea wants to be started. And that sounds weird to say, But if it's good for Bethea's mental for him to start, then he'll start him. But I think that either way, as long as he's playing well, Nate's going to play him the minutes because Nate cares way more about the minutes than who's on the floor at the start of the game. It's all about, Nate said it many times. It's who finishes, not who starts. Good game. Y'all played great. Was essentially a home game for us. Phylon had the clutch gene at the end. 100% agree. Yeah, Jordan, appreciate you joining. A home game for sure, definitely in Chicago. Similar to that game in Birmingham last season. Phylon did have that clutch three at the end. Would have loved to see him make the extra free throw, but I thought that he definitely did a really good job attacking y'all's zone at the very end. I know that Brad Underwood ended up going zone to try to see if you could stop the penetration. But for me, I would never have gone zone against Alabama because the problem you start running into is when you collapse down in that zone, Alabama just has too many shooters on the outside. I'm almost curious if that's what he was wanting, is he wanted to collapse down, not give up the layup in the paint and just hope that we miss the three on the outside, which okay, I'm fine with that. But I thought that LeBaron Fallon, just his ability to attack that zone at the end of the game was definitely part of the difference maker. That and then the Houston Millette turnover or steal that forced the turnover for you guys, I think was kind of the difference and got us up by enough that it turned into the free throw shooting contest, which Alabama was able to prevail in. But I do think that it was a very, very good game. Very similar to our Alabama Purdue game. I think this Alabama Illinois game is definitely like a Sweet 16 style, Elite Eight style matchup. Would not be upset if I saw it again in March. What other questions do you guys have? I know it's super late. Like I said, we're not going to go crazy, crazy late tonight just because it's 11:12 here in Alabama. Best of luck the rest of the season to you guys as well. Appreciate you joining. So just a little bit of a programming heads up for anybody that's new to the channel or whatever. I'm going to be out of town starting on Tuesday for Thanksgiving. So my plan is to record Monday evening, and I'm going to do a Monday evening breakdown um of the MTE in Vegas, the Players Era. I will do previews and I will do pregame threads for all the games in Vegas. However, the only preview show that I'm going to do is a full Players Era preview show. I'm not going to do individual game preview shows just because it's Thanksgiving and I'm going to be out of town. So just a little bit of a heads up, we will have a full Players Era breakdown, and then I will have individual deep dive threads on my Twitter and on the website like we talked about. But I'm not going to do individual games that are going to come out, obviously, each game, just obviously with it being Thanksgiving, that's not something that really fits within the schedule. My plan is that we get back on Saturday evening, pretty late, and then on Sunday I'm going to record the breakdown. So Sunday I'll record the breakdown and I'll try to get it out as quickly as I can on Sunday. So preview show is probably going to drop on Tuesday because I'll record it on Monday, and then breakdown show will happen on Sunday for anybody interested. Like I said, I will of course do the previews and breakdowns. Just with it being Thanksgiving, I can't do game by game. Also, with them being back to back days, that gets pretty difficult. So just a little bit of a heads up. This is a great question, Bama Smoke. Do you like the transition three pull up when it's 3-on-1? It's such a odd predicament. Part of me says yes, and part of me says no. I think the real answer is who is pulling the three in transition. If it's Aiden or Trelly, I love it. If it's just about anybody else, I don't know that I love it. I think that Aiden and Trelly shoot so well in rhythm that them being in transition is completely like what you want them to be. And that honestly makes them, they're playing a little faster. So it makes them not think about the shot. So I think that they're great with it. Most of the other people, I would prefer us just, get the layup at the basket, try to get fouled, um, throw an alley oop. Obviously, I know we missed a couple of alley oops in this game, but again, I thought that there was we took a transition three with LeBaron instead of throwing the alley oop to Keaton. that I would have preferred the opposite choice and on that specific one. Um, Again, I think it really depends on who's taking the shot in transition because I think that the difference in this year's team versus some teams in years past, and I think years past, I had a different answer to this because a guy like Mark Sears was phenomenal in transition and he had an issue sometimes about getting blocked at the rim versus LeBaron Fallon very I'm not saying he never gets blocked, but he does a really good job at avoiding getting his shot blocked. So I'm not as much concerned about him if he gets to the rim, even if it's a 3-on-1. I'm not as concerned about the shot getting blocked. Additionally, I will say that this year we have an athleticism from guys like Amari Allen, Davion Hannah, and Bull Bowen and Keaton Bristow. And you just have an athleticism from some of those guys that I think that you haven't had in years past. So you have an ability to finish with a dunk, right? Like a 3-on-1 dunk is going to give you the same level of jolt of energy as that 3-on-1 three. Obviously, the 3-on-1 three gets you the extra points, but I think it's as much of the confidence booster and the elevation of the crowd as it is anything else. And I think that if you get a huge dunk in transition, that's going to do exactly, Andre Stojakovic's dunk's a great example. His dunk in transition off the block, I thought was as big a deal to them if they had hit a three, maybe even bigger. And so, personally, I think it really depends on who's taking that shot. Obviously, you don't want to look at it as whether they make it or not. But like I said, for me, if it's Aiden, Holloway, or Trelly, I want them to pull it just because I think that that's the position in which they shoot the best. Obviously, I want it to be a good three. I don't want you to take a way past NBA range just because you could. I want you to take it, near the line, take a solid shot, but I'm okay with you pulling it. I think that's kinda how I personally look at it. NATO probably has a way different answer than I do, but that's kinda how I look at the transition 3, 3-on-1 scenario. Be curious what y'all's kinda thoughts on that is, but like I said, my personal thoughts on it are that it's okay if the right guy's taking it. It's not okay if the wrong guy's taking it. I think that there are certain guys that just probably should never take that shot, but, um, I do understand why they do. What other questions y'all got? Not sure if y'all saw the game before ours because I know Alabama's game got pushed back by about 15 minutes, but Alabama or Arizona took down UConn the game before us. That's gonna be a huge game in Birmingham in December. I'm not sure if anybody has their tickets to that one, but gonna be a massive, massive game in December in Birmingham. Koa Pete, I know is gonna be an animal for us to go up against. I know he's somebody that getting a guy like Keaton Bristow back to have the additional physicality is going to be very, very big because they also have Tobe Awaka. So having Awaka and Koa Pete, you're going to need to have big games out of Bolbo and Keaton and Aiden Sherrill, Noah. Your whole front court's going to have a big game against those type of guys. And Koa Pete's been one of the best freshmen in the country. So not sure if y'all saw that game, but I thought that um, Arizona continues to look really, really good. Jaden Bradley, obviously former Alabama guy, um, really willed the team to victory at the end there, and was very impressed with what I saw out of Arizona. Yeah, so Bama Smoke, you were talking about how the defense dug in the second half. I think part of that had to do with, I mentioned obviously, I think it partially had to do with Keaton being able to know that he was going to be out there. I thought that additionally we were a bit quicker to get Amari Allen out there. And I think that his defense and his length has been a huge, huge deal. I think part of that's also like Aiden Holloway being locked in. Obviously, he didn't have his greatest shooting night, but I think he's been locked in from a defensive perspective. Um, and it's honestly shocked me, and I've been very proud of what I've seen out of Aiden, early this season. I think that his defense this season has done a lot better. I know he had a trap last game against Purdue. Him and Aiden Sherrill combined for a trap and they've just had some really, really good defensive possessions with some of those guys. And I think that Nate Oates is mixing up the coverages a little bit more on defense than he has in years past, where it's not just playing drop coverage. Sometimes he's blitzing screen. He's just doing so much different things in ball screens. And I think that I've been very impressed with his kind of change ups and coverage and what he's done, whether it be going for doubles and just, trapping a little bit more. I feel like this team has an athleticism and has a quickness where as long as we continue up the defensive effort, I think that the defense on this team is going to continue to get better and better as the season goes along. I think this team is miles better than some of our other, like, oh, this team's just an offensive team. I think this team is a much better defensive team than that because of what we can do from a switching perspective and truly the athleticism 1 through 5. You know, Aiden Holloway is the only guy who really has given up substantial height on most teams he's going to be going up against. But even Aiden Holloway at times today, Stojakovic was able to have some success, but I don't think that Aiden Holloway was the reason why he was having success. Even though he was giving up fairly substantial height in that matchup. So I thought that Aiden's physicality and how much strength he's gained in the offseason has been a big deal. And I think that just across the board, Alabama's ability to be longer, more athletic has really helped us in defense. And I know that we talked about that was a goal for NATO's this season, and it clearly has paid off. Just having the extra length and physicality, I think, has been a very big deal for the defense. And it's making up for some of the maybe potential lack of individual defensive contributors because you just play better defense as a team. So I do agree that the defense dug in the second half. Obviously, very very big deal. I think that the threes that were happening in the first half, unless it turns into a BYU game in the Sweet 16, I think that you fully expected that it was going to be that, right? Like unless it turns into a 23-3 game, um, the threes were gonna slow down and the defense was gonna have to ramp up, and then it was a who's giving more physicality, who's giving more defense, and Alabama turned up the physicality and the rebounding in that second half, and it was the reason they won the game. See if the Ken Palm line has come out. It has. So Alabama is up to 18 in Ken Palm. They currently are 10th in defense, and or sorry, 10th in offense and 35th in defense. That's like perfect example. When we kind of talk about the Ken Palm numbers, it's something that I look at very, very much so. And I talk about how Alabama really needs to be like top 30, top 25, top 30 in defense, sitting at 35 after three top 20, top 20 matchups. St. John's being the worst of those matchups at 19. Just a huge, huge deal for Alabama to, have the defense that they're showing. We're currently 5th in tempo. One of the things that honestly Alabama's had the most success with is Alabama's 16th in the country at not turning over the ball on offense. And this has been one of NATO's best teams at not turning over the ball. I think statistically it is our best team at not turning over the ball. From a non-steal turnover, I mean, we're 9th in the country. So again, Alabama's just done a great job at not turning over the ball. A lot of our success is coming at the rim. We're 61% from two versus just 34% from three. So not our best 3-point shooting team by any stretch, but I think that some of those numbers are going to come back. LeBaron Fallon shooting 38% this season. Amari Allen's 35. I think he's a better shooter than that. Aiden Holloway's 34. He is a better shooter than that. Bobo at 37. That's probably pretty close. I think he was a 40% shooter last season. Houston at 35 is a little low. Trelly at 33 is definitely low. London Jemison at 11. Noah Williamson at 20%, right? All those numbers I think are a little low. So I do think that the team shooting percentage is probably going to hover more around the 36.5, 37% range, not 34. So obviously Alabama has not shot as well from three as they could in some other or have in seasons past, but I think that realistically long term they're going to be able to be better. Additionally, Alabama did get 79 possessions in this game, and 79 possessions, if y'all watched again my breakdown that I did with the Armchair Illini, I thought that the biggest keys in this game was Alabama. We didn't have to win the rebounding battle, but we had to keep it close because Illinois prior to this game, and let's see what their numbers changed to. So Illinois prior to this game was number 10 and number 3 in offense and defensive rebounding. They're now number 20 and number 8 based solely off of what happened in our game because of how well Alabama did on the glass. Alabama gets 10 offensive. Illinois gets 14. So obviously they did better than us there, but was fairly close. And then Alabama did did super well from a defensive rebounding perspective. We actually out defensive rebounded them 28-26. Funny enough, um, this game was more about the fact that um, Alabama played better in ISO ball than Illinois did, which is crazy. Looking at the official full numbers, Alabama had 15 assists, whereas Illinois only had 17. I didn't think they got quite that many assists off, but it looks like Petrovic that came in had 5 in just 12 minutes, which is crazy. And then Boswell ended up having 7 in 33 minutes. So overall, I think that Illinois did a pretty good job, obviously moving the ball in this game better than they'd done in the rest of the season, honestly. But Alabama was able to block more shots than them, which when you got 2 7-footers that they play, obviously that's a huge deal for Alabama to do that. Pretty close on the steals numbers. The big difference was Alabama was 17 of 30 from 2 for 56%, and Illinois was 20 of 41 for just 48%. So Alabama was substantially more efficient inside the arc, and then Alabama hit 2 more threes than they did. So, the numbers inside and outside the arc, Alabama just won both of those. And when you look at that with the rebounding numbers being as close as they were, Alabama only lost the rebounding battle by 2. Obviously got out rebounded on offense by 4, but out rebounded the Illinois by 2 on defense. So huge deals to have those numbers kind of pop up. Additionally, it looks like Bama Smokes. I think the 3 percentage will get better. 100%. And look out if it does. Agree, right? I think that this 5-out system is something that Nate Oates. You also have to consider these percentages. Alabama is figuring out fully how it runs its offense this season because the offense changes a little bit. I don't know if y'all saw the article that was basket under review. Blake Byler, or not Blake Byler, Jacob Pickle shared it earlier today. Let me make sure I can tell y'all exactly what the article was called. But the basket under review, Joe Jackson wrote an article called "The Pick and Roll Tide" with basket under review. Which, if y'all have not checked it out, and if you're a basketball fan, I would absolutely do so. It's on Twitter. I retweeted it earlier today. Like I said, Joe Jackson, college basketball, is who wrote it. He talked about how Alabama has changed their pick and roll and how much more in pick and roll they've been this season than they have in years past. And I think that Alabama has changed a little bit of what they do from an offensive perspective. Part of that is the influence of our new coach. Part of that's just Nate Oates' system of evolving with the players that he gets. But I think that the big reason why this matters is Nate Oates' system is again evolving, and so the 3-point shot changes a little bit each season because of that. And also you just have, when you're playing against tougher competition, sometimes the threes just don't fall quite as well as you would hope they would. Most other teams have not played 3 top 20 teams so far this season. So the fact that Alabama has is a big deal. Alabama's numbers, I fully suspect, will go up when they play guys like UTSA, maybe South Florida and Kennesaw State, but those two scare me a little bit just because when you're talking former Oates assistants in Hodgson and Petway, sometimes that hurts you a little bit because Hodgson, I know, knows how to play us really well. So would be curious how South Florida and Kennesaw end up going, but I would suspect that the numbers do go up some in those games. That's what some of the smaller games are more for at times, to help you get your confidence back. But I agreed. I think at times Alabama will definitely shoot better from 3. And I think that, like you said, when we do, you might as well look out because this Alabama team is going to score in a hurry with everybody. I mean, you have to think about that. Alabama scored 90 on Illinois, shooting just 36% from 3. We scored 100 on St. John's, scoring 36% from 3. Alabama had plenty of 40+% from 3 games last season. If they have one of those, they're going to blow the doors off somebody, right? If Alabama has a 40% 3-point shooting game, they're going to blow the absolute doors off somebody. I mean, they shot 37% in the Purdue game, and it's the reason why it was a tie game with a minute and a half to go, even though you got absolutely dominated on the glass. And I think that those are kind of the numbers that Alabama is capable of, and that's 16 threes on a 37% game, which again is a fine shooting game, but for Alabama's ability, I think that we're a better shooting team than that. What other question do you guys have? I'm probably not going to stay on too terribly much longer, but if you have a couple more questions, I'm happy to answer them, and then we will get out of here. You don't get FS1, but saw the highlights. Stojakovic looks like a stud for Illinois. Yes, agreed. Stojakovic uh, was very, very good in this game, and we talked about him a little bit earlier. I thought that at times he was able to do whatever he wanted. The 3-point shot was not the place where he had a ton of success against Texas Tech, but he had a huge game against Texas Tech as well. Um, will I be going to Arizona? Probably. I have not gotten my tickets for that one yet, but more than likely, yes. Um, I'm trying to see if I've got some friends that I wanna go with, or me and my fiancé may just go to the game. I don't have my tickets yet, but I have my season tickets, obviously, for all the ones in Coleman, but more than likely, we'll be going to that game, absolutely. Um, for the Stojakovic, like I said, I thought that he played a big game against Alabama. He also played a huge game against Texas Tech. His free throws that I'm sure were not in the highlight tape, he missed 3 free throws, which was a pretty big issue for him in that game, and um, those 3 free throws were massive because of when he missed them as much as anything else, and I think that it was, at least partially part of the reason why they ended up losing. Obviously, without his points, you don't even get there, so it's kind of one that if you're Illinois, you'll take the missed free throws, I guess, because he scored the amount of points that he did. But in a perfect world, he's definitely going to work on those because that's going to hurt you down the stretch. Bristow is a huge addition. I don't know if we're going to get much out of the fives. I think that the fives are going to very much depend on the game. But I do agree that I think that small ball fours or small ball fives that are playing the four, typically like your Bristows and TBB are going to probably have more success from a scoring output perspective. I think that Aiden Sherrill is going to have some games where he's going to be fine. Noah Williamson, I think eventually will be okay, but he still worries me. His lack of athleticism is super evident at times. I thought he would have an impact in this game potentially just due to the fact that the European team, the Illinois semi-European team we were playing, had a lot of guys that were very fundamentally sound, but were not super athletic, and Noah really was not super effective in this one. And I thought that this was going to be one he was going to be effective. I think part of his issue also was when we're playing these games where the pace gets up crazy, like 79 possessions. This was a running match. Um, that causes a big problem, right? Noah just doesn't have the conditioning to be able to run 79 possessions. Aiden Sherrill has way better conditioning than Noah, and he has some weight on him. So I think that's part of his issue. Part of the issue is obviously just how he played last season and the system he came from. I know that's sometimes an issue coming to NATO's system, but I do think that that is part of his problem. It looks like he's nailed to the floor, not playable against some teams. I would agree, right? Like, unfortunately, I think that Noah Williamson at times this season has been purely unplayable, and it's not great. I think that long term he eventually is going to get better, but I think that's where having a guy like Keaton Bristow is a huge deal. It's part of the reason why I was scared in the St. John's game, but was very excited to get a huge game out of Taylor Bolbowen. I was super scared in this game. You get a big game out of Keaton Bristow. Was scared in the Purdue game, and unfortunately, Bull Bowen didn't rebound great. Aiden Sherrill had an okay game, but didn't rebound great. Bristow doesn't play, and Clough and TKR just absolutely dominated you. That's what happened, right? If you have Bristow, I think that's a different game. I don't think that you win, as I said previously, I don't think you win the rebounding battle, but I think it's much closer, and that would have been enough to win that game. I think that you would have flipped the score, but you wouldn't have flipped the rebounding. Maybe you only lose the rebounding by 18 instead of 24. And honestly, only losing by 18 instead of 24 wins you the game because of how important some of those rebounds were at times in that Purdue game. All right. Gonzaga is big too. We're going to have our hands full 100%. Not sure what you guys have seen out of Gonzaga so far this season. Currently ranked number 2 in the country per Ken Palm. They have Graham Ike at 6'9" and Braden Huff at 6'10". So they're from a height perspective, not quite as big, but Braden Huff and Ike both are pretty stout guys. They're both 250 listed. So they're both pretty big guys. I think that overall, Alabama should be able to defend them with guys like Keaton Bristow, Taylor Bowen. I think that the same guys we've played in this game are gonna be good in this one. But I would say that Gonzaga's front court, of course, Alabama has played a phenomenal front court game and game and game again, and Gonzaga is no different. You're not really going to have much of a let down for Alabama until you play like UNLV. UNLV's by far, will be other than your opening game against North Dakota. UNLV will be by far the worst team you'll have played this season. And so it's a pretty big deal. Like I said, I will give my full write up on that Gonzaga game. I will do a full breakdown of the Gonzaga game here coming out on, like I said, that'll probably come out on Tuesday morning. And then I will do write ups that are going to come out on the morning of each game. So I know we play Gonzaga. Is it on? Let's see. No, we played Gonzaga Monday night. So if we're playing Gonzaga Monday night, I actually will probably record that one on Sunday. I will go ahead and tell you guys because it is a 9:30 p.m. Monday matchup, and I have a flight at like 8 o'clock the next morning. Um, I am not doing a stream. It's gonna be tough for me to obviously be able to catch that full game and then be able to get to the airport because of the unfortunate West Coast timing. But I will watch the game, but there is no chance that I am going to be doing a post-game stream or anything after a 9:30 Gonzaga game because I have a flight to Maryland the next morning at 8 o'clock. So no chance, not gonna happen. But like I said, since I realize the game is now Monday, I will put out the MTE breakdown for Las Vegas on Sunday. I'll record it on Sunday. I'll put it out Sunday night for everybody. Any last questions before I get out of here? Because it is 11:38 in God's time, and it's about time to go. This is one I actually would like to see some other thoughts. Is Jemison going to be a contributor? It's a question that I've had, and I feel like the answer is yes. But it's the reason I asked the question is he's somebody that I thought would have been further along at this point. Statistically, he was the highest rated guy coming out of high school. Obviously, I know ratings aren't everything, but he was the highest rating guy coming out of high school. He's somebody that I know that a lot of people have had very high on. And Amari Allen clearly has passed him as top freshman. Davion Hannah at times, obviously Hannah didn't, got sped up a lot in this game and didn't end up playing much. But I thought that Davion Hannah seems to have gotten more run out of Nate than Jemison. I'd be very curious what you guys' thoughts on why you think that is and kind of what role you see London playing. I still think that obviously London plays this season. This isn't me saying, oh, we're going to redshirt him or anything like that. But I am curious because I think that coming into the season, Amari being so far and above everyone else from a freshman standpoint wasn't what was expected. Obviously, you had heard some things out of camp that he was playing really well and was potentially going to do well. But I think that London Jemison, again, having that ranking and stuff, a lot of people expected to do better. And him not being as much in the rotation, I think has more to do about the other people than it does London. I think that honestly has more to do with the like how good Keaton Bristow has been. If Keaton Bristow's been that good, you obviously I don't say they play the exact same position, but I think that that 3-4 position is kind of clogged up currently when you have Amari playing as good as he's playing, Houston doing the plays that help lead you to victory, whether it's calling a timeout or getting the steal, hitting big free throws. I mean, Houston's been really big. Um, even when you're playing Trelly at the three because you're playing LeBaron and Aiden Holloway, sorry. Um, so I think that part of it's just that 3-4 has gotten really clogged up, and London Jemison hasn't done enough to warrant the immediate playing time. And that begs the question on Majula Bethea as well, right? Like I think Bethea is going to be good enough to get into that rotation, but right now that 3-4 you got to play right, and you got to play really well if you want to be in that position, especially when you have Taylor sliding down to the five. Now, if Keaton is going to be really more of your small ball five and Taylor's going to be playing more of a true four, I don't know that that's any better, but I think that potentially helps you a little bit with Jemison. Brandon, you're asking a great question, and we kind of talked about that one a little bit earlier. I'm not 100% sure what happens when he returns. I'm of the mindset that if he is as advertised and what we have heard over the offseason about how good of a shooter he's been and some of the athleticism that we've seen out of him, I think Bethea ends up becoming a 20-minute a game guy. The question starts coming like, where do those minutes come from? And I think that because of how well you saw Bristow play, I think that you will see more of Bristow and Taylor at the small ball five than Noah. Unfortunately, I think that there will be large stretches of this season where Noah does not play, um, especially if the speed of the game gets up, because I think his conditioning is that bad, personally. And I think that having a guy like Taylor or Keaton just makes more sense. Agreed. Division about Jemison playing serious minutes, less injuries or foul trouble. That's what it currently looks like. Currently looks like London's not going to play a ton unless that's the case. Coming into the season, you wouldn't have thought that, but I'm of the mindset that if that's the case, you're happy about it because it means you're doing better than you thought. So, any of the times you see something like that, I'm really happy about it. Daniel, you're not wrong. Despite putting up 90, our offense wasn't that great. I mean, you did well shooting from inside the arc. I thought that at times our offense got a little stagnant. Obviously, you still got 79 possessions, so was happy to see that. 3-point shooting, 36%. As we mentioned, not your best, not your worst. I think that there were obviously fast break points were the big missed ones that I think that you're going to immediately point out is you missed a couple of dunks, you missed some layups. There were a lot of just down and out type stuff. And I think that if those go the opposite way, this is a 100-point game and you feel a little bit differently about our offense. But I mean, I don't disagree with that standpoint because there were moments where it felt like Houston or somebody maybe missed a wide open three, and then you missed something in transition, and it felt like the offense got a little stagnant at times. Nate even talked about it when they were in the huddle at one point, where hey, the defense is doing great, but the offense is struggling. So, yeah, 1.14, not bad. It's at the end of the day, you gave up or you scored a 1.14 and you gave up a 1.09. And as long as the one that you're scoring is more than the one you're giving up, then you're happy. Right? Like at the end of the day, the offense was better than the defense because you scored more points. And as long as you got that, then you're happy to go. Yeah, I would agree with that, Don. I think that we're only going to be playing 20, 25 minutes a game from the 2 5s. That's probably accurate. And I think that Aiden Sherrill gets the lion's share of those minutes. I think that Aiden Sherrill, obviously today was not a great game from him just from a fouls perspective, but I still think that there was reasons why you kept putting him out there. He also has an athleticism where he can still guard the more athletic bigs, whereas Noah Williamson just does not. I don't know if y'all saw there was a time where Mirkovic gets the ball on the baseline or gets the ball near the baseline, spins baseline, and just Noah actually recovered okay, ended up doing fine, but Noah's inability to stay in front of somebody that has any level of athleticism or quickness bothers me. And yeah, so I would fully expect that that's the case. Like I said, I think there's moments where he's going to play, but I think that you're going to see more small ball fives this season out of Keaton and Taylor, to be quite honest. All right. Well, this is an hour, guys. I appreciate everybody joining. I know we have 100 of you guys in here, so sorry for calling it with so many people in here, but it is late and I have work tomorrow. So I really appreciate all y'all for joining. If y'all aren't currently subscribed to the channel, if y'all could do me a favor and subscribe, I would appreciate it. As I mentioned previously, we're on the road to 1,000 subs. We're we're chugging along. We're getting really close. I know we're right around 850 right now, so would really appreciate it if y'all aren't subscribed to YouTube to do so. As I mentioned previously, if y'all are interested in any of the written content, it's on barnesonbama.com. That's where the pregame threads are hosted, as well as on my Twitter account. So if you're looking for any more comments down there, looking for any more breakdowns for the basketball games, I will write the ones for Gonzaga and everybody and have those ready to go out for the MTE. Big folks, thanks for all you do. I really, hey, this is part of the reason I do this. I do this because I wanted to start a thing talking Alabama basketball, being a season ticket holder for a couple of years. And I went to like 10 to 12 games when I was living in Dallas, right? Like I'd come in to visit my parents and I would come to games, and I was at the Alabama Houston game that we came back from a 19-point deficit in the second half. And I've been a huge Alabama basketball guy, and that's part of the reason why I developed this channel. So, I appreciate you guys joining and all the support. It's been a lot to me. I know that during basketball season, especially when football season's still going on, we're a random bunch that keeps it going, but I really appreciate it. Dizzy Vision, Noah shown me Patriot Basketball League may not be elite. At a minimum, they may not have athletes. The basketball itself may be okay, but the athletes are not. Sherelle has to be able to defend without fouling. We're going to need it by more than 9 minutes. I would agree with that in general. I think this was a game in which it was okay, but I think that you needed him more than that against like Clough and TKR last game, and you're going to need him long term more than what he was able to give. So unfortunate, but it happens. So like I said, I really appreciate everybody for joining. Sorry about the mute thing that happened at the beginning of the stream. Really sorry about that. But thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. If y'all are interested in the content, go and subscribe. Let me know in the comments if y'all have any other questions. And I'll try to answer them when I wake up in the morning or whatever we got going on. But really appreciate everybody. Thank y'all so much. And I will catch y'all in the next one. Peace.